I just hope they using whatever resources, that's so many resources that they could get, to use them and then study them so that they have sufficient information to carry with them before migrating. Okay, so that they will not be put in a very difficult situation. So information is very, very important. They must have, the right information, and also the right mindset. Be able to get into a right mindset about how it is to migrate to a different country, because migrating to a different country is not that easy. You have to adjust to a different way of life, a different culture.
Please listen carefully.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening whenever you listen to this podcast. With me, Jess, and Anna is here with me as well. Welcome to Voice Podcast by BBC, a podcast dedicated to highlight the stories around cross-cutting human rights issues across East and Southeast Asia. This podcast is an initiative of BBC Network, stands for Better Engagement Between East and Southeast Asia.
Voice Podcast, the voice of East and Southeast Asia.
Thank you, Anna, for accompanying me to be the co-host today.
Of course. Thank you, Jess. I'm back as well.
Right. So, what are we going to talk in this episode is based on the what's happened in Japan, like in the New Year's Day, yeah, Anna. Yeah. So, as we all know, on the New Year's Day of 2024, a magnitude 7.6 earthquake struck Noto Peninsula of Ishikawa Prefecture in the central region of Japan. Almost 2 months later, nearly 250 people have been confirmed to have died as results of the disaster, which, while nearly 70,000 houses have been destroyed or damaged. Tens of thousands of houses still do not have their electricity and water supply back, while Japan is one of the countries most affected by natural disasters, as 2 out of the 5 most expensive natural disasters in recent history have occurred in the country in 1995 to 2011. We know that in emergency situations like natural disasters, marginalized communities are often disproportionately and significantly affected, and the migrant community is one of them. On this occasion, I'd like to, of course, express my solidarity first to the victims and people affected by the incident.
So, in situations like that, access to information plays a key role in disaster preparedness and navigating emergency situations. So, talking about access to information, as a voluntary group in Japan that helps children and youth of Filipino and mixed heritage who migrate to Japan, in 2021, Kakehashi published Bridging the Gap, which is a practical guide meant to help young Filipino Japanese migrants face various challenges, as illustrated through the retelling of real-life stories of individuals who overcame those challenges. This book also has a dedicated section on staying safe, emergency readiness, which specifically provides information about ways to prepare ourselves before a disaster, as well as how to stay safe during a typhoon, tsunami, earthquake, snowstorm, or fire in Japan. So this book also won the 2021 Migration Advocacy and Media Award in the Philippines for the Best Book on Migration, Nonfiction, or Guide category.
Wow, and that's very cool, yeah, personally, I think. So, and I also think that it will be great, of course, if in this episode we can talk about Kakehashi and the reason why they produce and publish the book, and also their works in general.
Yes, and that's exactly why in this episode we have someone here who's joining us. Who's very eligible to talk about the things you mentioned earlier. So she is a very close friend of BBC, and it's an honor
Mm.
to have her here. So let's welcome Bituin Shimada or Tita B.
Yeah.
Yay.
Hi, Tita B.
Afternoon. Thank you very
Good
much for inviting
afternoon.
me to your program. It's really an honor for me to join you today. And I
Yeah,
hope I will be
yes.
able to share some things, some good things with you. Yeah.
Sure, Tita B. And of course, we also would like to thank you for accepting our invitation. We are
Uh,
also very honored to have you here in Voicey Podcast. And we are looking forward actually to what you're going to tell us today on this episode. So
sure.
before anything else, Tita B, we know that Tita B is the founding members of Kakehashi, right?
Yeah.
And
One of the
before
founding members.
one of
Yeah.
the founding
Yeah.
members of Kakehashi. So I mean, before anything else, could you please tell us a bit of yourself, Tita B?
Okay. Well, I made my grandmother already. I've been living here in Japan for 50 years, actually.
Wow.
Yes. After I graduated from university in the
Mm,
Philippines, I
mm.
came to Japan as Ministry of Education scholar. And I
Oh,
studied at the Tokyo University of Foreign Studies and majored in Japanese language for 5 years. Okay. And
mm,
after that, well, because I studied Japanese and I could speak Tagalog, Filipino, and
mm,
English, well, I became an interpreter. And my main job, and that has been my career for more than 20 years now, is being an interpreter in courts. Um, for Filipinos or other foreign nationalities who get arrested and get charged and have to face the court, they are provided with the services of an interpreter by the court. So that's it. I studied Japanese and then I was able to master it. It was a difficult, very difficult um, phase in my life to study the Japanese language, but it is very much well worth all the pains. I think, yeah. Now with the language, I can be like a Kakehashi for so many people, I think.
Right. So that's a very you have a very interesting background, Tita B. So 50 years, it's like very it's in the 90s, right? So yeah, well maybe
No,
also
in the 70s
oh
actually.
70s. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I remember you told us that you migrated during the time of martial law. Am I correct?
All right. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
After uh during the martial law, yeah.
Oh, during the martial law in the
Yeah.
Philippines.
Mhm.
Ah
so
yes.
what's that? So I'm not a Filipino, so I might
Oh yeah.
not getting in the context. So what's that?
So during the 90s, 70s, right?
70s,
So
yeah.
Ah,
yeah, we had a dictatorship under the Marcos Senior regime. So it was 20 years. And it is known to have like some human rights violation, corruption, and the horrible things in a dictatorship. So
mm,
Yeah, it was the time when the Filipinos were not allowed to travel. But I found a way. I took this examination for this scholarship and I found my way out and I was able to come here to Japan. Yes.
cool.
I see.
That's the background. Yeah.
All right. So very very interesting background, Tito B.
Very interesting backgrounds. And
Yeah.
so before I know you are you can't wait to ask questions to Tita B, but can you explain to me uh, and our audience why Between is called Tita B actually.
Ah,
Oh,
see.
Right.
Actually, my name, Bituin, it's a Tagalog word. It means
Mm.
star. Okay. And I am named after my mother. But
Mm.
although my mother's name is also Star, but it's in one of the dialects of the Philippines, which is Ilocano.
oh,
Her name
Mm.
is Bituin.
Bituin. Okay.
Bituin. And my name is Bituin.
Yeah,
It's
it's
Mm.
Tagalog
Tagalog. Yeah.
Ilocano. And everybody calls me because she's Big B, I'm Little B. I'm Little B.
Oh.
Distinguished. Okay. So here in, well, I have many nephews and nieces, and they call me Auntie B, Auntie B. But here in Japan, I'm probably one of the oldest Filipinos here. So everybody just calls me Tita B. And
Mm.
that means Auntie B.
Yes.
They're not actually my nephews or nieces, but as a sign of endearment or and respect for me, they call me Tita V.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like Mbak, am I correct? In Indonesian, right?
Oh, it's like okay, something like Mbak, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like something you say to an elder woman, right?
Yes.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And that
Alright.
shows, how old I am here now.
Yeah, very long time. Yeah.
Very long time. Yeah. Very long time. Yeah. You're not born yet, actually.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
Yeah.
new generations. All
Mm.
right, Tito B. So let's talk about Bridging the Gap, the book that you have published.
All
So I
right.
noticed that in the guideline, beside the dedicated section of emergency readiness, there are also many topics that are aimed to be a guideline for young migrants who come to
Mhm.
Japan. So I assume that there must be a specific reason behind making of the book. So what is the common problem that is usually faced by young migrants who migrate to Japan, and what
Mm.
made Kakehashi feel the urge to make this book?
See, it's like this. Many of these young migrants who came to Japan are children of the Filipino women who came to Japan in the 1980s. Um, as there was still entertainment visas then, so really a lot of Filipino women came in the 1980s, working for pubs and clubs as entertainers. Okay. And then, together with that, there was a phenomenon where most of them would want to stay on. They would have relationship with Japanese nationals. Some would be successful, some wouldn't be. Some would marry so they could get visas and be able to stay here and work some more and be able to continue sending money back home. And in the process, they have children, okay? Whether they're legal, legitimate or illegitimate, there were children, okay? And most of these Filipinas wanted to continue working, of course, and that's because that's the reason why they're here. So with a child, they couldn't work. So most of them would give birth in the Philippines or take their babies back to the Philippines and make their families raise their children while they're still very small. Okay. And then when these children turned around 11 or 12, when the mothers feel that they could, fend for themselves already, if you put them to school, they would not have to be taking care of them too much. They started bringing them over to Japan. Okay. And there was one problem, though. There's one big problem that resulted from that. These children have a feeling that Japan is it's a heaven, anime, Disneyland, all the nice things,
Yeah.
very high tech, everything is high tech. but
Mm-hmm.
they don't know the reality. So they come here and they think that everyone is rich over here. Okay. They come to Japan and they see that their mothers are working double during the day, at night, just to provide their families back home and her own family. And most of the time, the mother has remarried to um, to a man that is not the child's own father. Okay, so the child comes into the family and he doesn't know the language. He finds out that he's lost, not knowing how to speak the language. Okay, so he at first he's okay, he's enjoying, but then he realizes when once he's put into school, he cannot cope with his studies, and some are being bullied because he could not speak the language, and he just feels there's no place for him. So then the problem starts. There's no place at home. At home here, he finds out that they would have to live in small homes where you don't have much privacy, and then you have to deal with a father who's not your own biological father. And when you grow up with your grandmother or your aunts and not grow up with your own mother, it's kind of difficult, to connect with her immediately.
Yes.
So then there's going to be a gap, okay? And then there's the child doesn't have a place at home or even at school. So then we saw that there were crimes committed. What happens is that they stop going to school, and then they just bum around, and then they group themselves and then commit crimes, small crimes, big crimes, many different crimes. And because they don't have a place to go and they don't know what to do, and they don't get enough supervision, and they don't speak the language, and it's just very tough on them. And as a court interpreter, I would hear all of this, voices, from the children themselves and from their parents who regret, not having looked after their child after bringing them over. And they only find out that the child has a problem when the child has already committed a crime. See, so there were many, some very prominent news articles about this in the past. Okay, the rising. In fact, the Filipino children would always rank number 1 or 2 in according to nationalities of the number of offenses being committed by the youth. This is according to the statistics of the Ministry of Justice. Okay, so then our group, it's a very small group. Just like me, Filipinos who have stayed here for long. We have come from different careers. We have one priest, we have a university professor, we have housewife, we have a banker, Filipinos who have stayed here for long. And also we had some few Japanese friends whose hearts, belong to the Philippines and they know the problem. So we all grouped together, about 10 of us. We would sit down, and then now what should we do? So we did some kind of a focus group discussion. We called in a few Japanese Filipino children, and then another one for their mothers only, to assess what their problems were and what their needs were. Okay. And we also conducted survey among the children. They call it JFCs. using,
Can, can you tell us what JFCs are? Is, sorry.
we call it for Japanese Filipino children.
Okay. So that's
Children
just
are, half, born from a Japanese father and a Japanese mother or whatever. Yeah, they called it JFC. So we did a survey asking them what their problems were, and that was what we found out. They didn't have a place in the society, and the language barrier was a big, big problem. And then they didn't have much information when they came here. They were just brought here. So then we decide, okay, why not come up with a handbook? From our own experiences, we could each write something and come up with, this book. And that was what we did, exactly did. We divided the topics among ourselves, and well, we all have our own jobs. It took long to finish it, but we did finish it.
how
So,
long was the production process?
well, we started, I think, in around 2019, 18, 19.
Mm,
But then the pandemic came.
right.
Okay.
So it was difficult. There was a time it was difficult. We could not meet. And so, but we still went on. And we were very lucky to have met Sasakawa Peace
Mm,
Foundation people who were very generous, and they believed in our cause. So they funded the first publishing of the book.
wow.
So we worked hard on that. After we knew that we would have SPF behind us, we worked so hard. We said
Right.
there's no reason for us not to continue this, despite the hardships. So it was
Cool.
difficult because we did it in three languages:
Mm,
Japanese, Tagalog, and
Tagalog.
and English. So
Yeah.
really entailed a lot of job, because we had to go through details of the information. We wanted to make sure that we were providing the information that were needed, and that they were accurate, and this had to be translated too. So,
Mm-hmm.
and all of us were just working as volunteers,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
our own
All right.
private.
Right. Thank you, Tita B, for explaining a little about the context of why finally Kakehashi feel the urge to make this
Mhm.
guideline. I know, and I noticed that you also already explained a bit about what Kakehashi is, who are the people involved in it. But I wish that I could hear more about the work of Kakehashi in general, Tita B. Just like what are the focus areas, and then
Well,
I I noticed that Kakehashi is a group of voluntary, and I know that maybe all of you are very busy person. And so, how do you in Kakehashi develop and deliver the activities despite all of your busy schedules and so on and so forth? Maybe you
well,
can.
I think, yeah, it is our commitment, I think,
Mm, mm,
and we all had the same uh, objectives, and this is to help new migrants who will be coming in, and how to help them um, adjust to the new way of life here in Japan, and how to make it easier for them, so that they could become, responsible persons in the society. And in the future, they could be the ones who could be, teaching or guiding the other newcomers to the country like them. Okay. In fact, in this handbook, you will notice that we also have life stories, of successful children like them. And we want to inspire as many children as possible by, including these stories. Like there is one story of a little girl. When she came, she didn't want to come to Japan. She was just forced by her mother to come. So when she went to school, she was crying because she couldn't speak the language, couldn't understand anything, and she was pleading that she just be taken back home to Manila. But she wasn't allowed to go. So she then said, "Okay, I cannot do anything else but just do my best," and she did her best. She went through. There is a group in Shizuoka Prefecture that holds special classes for children like them. Okay, so every Saturday she would join that class so she could polish her Japanese and have people teach her homework. And she became very, very good in Japanese. And she has graduated from university already. And now she is volunteering in that same school where she went through. She was so happy that she learned so much from that um, special school for migrants like her. So she's been spending her time every Saturday there too, giving back, what she was able to get from them when she was younger. See, this is what we want to happen, to empower these young people, to be confident, be responsible in the society, and then try to give back, by sharing to the newcomers what they already have, the experiences that they have. And this is exactly what we want to do. Empower these children so that they could be better people. So, well, our activities just didn't end with this book, actually. We did a little few more activities, like we gathered Filipino community leaders for a life coach training, to give them some training how to be able to deal with Filipino migrants in their own communities. Okay, we did that, and also we held two other seminars, all for how to be able to help these migrants. We would invite people from the Japanese government, and so we could listen to how the Japanese stand is about helping these young migrants. We would invite professors who are specializing in migration to speak, and also some psychologists to talk about this and hear the stories of. We also see to it that we invite these young migrants to these occasions.
Right. So, you know what, Jess? So Tita B mentioned that Kakehashi wants to empower like the migrants, right? So I just want to give like a little perspective on the Filipinos, why they choose to migrate to Japan. Yeah. So yeah, in the time of we are living in a social media era. So I scroll through I scroll through TikTok, and then I see some. It's like they're recruiting. It's like they are also empowering like people to come to Japan, work as a teacher here, and yeah, and some perspectives I can see why they are choosing to migrate to Japan, right? Because it seems like there's a higher pay in Japan compared to being a professional here in the Philippines. So they're like say, and somehow it's easier to work in Japan, as they say.
One, this country is so stable and so safe. Everybody feels safe in this country. Okay.
Mhm.
So, well, I don't know if the pay is high. Well, definitely it's higher than what they will be getting in the Philippines. But here in Japan, if you work hard, well, some migrants would work double or triple, just so they could earn more money. And most of them would just be sending them home to their families, actually,
Yes.
to help their families.
Mhm.
Um, so now there are more and more trainees being brought to Japan, and also many other. Um, Before they used to be, like the women, to work as entertainers. But now you see caregivers, um, nurses, although it's very difficult for them, especially for nurses, because you have to learn the language and you
Yeah.
have to pass a test in Japanese to be
Mhm.
able to work as a nurse. So, also many work as English teachers,
Yes.
English
Yeah, there's a lot.
teachers, yes, and
Yeah, yeah,
IT,
yeah, yeah.
IT, yeah. Mhm.
IT, okay, interesting. So it seems like there are more options for the
Mm.
Now,
migrants to choose, right? It's not
so,
only being an entertainer. I
yes.
see.
But uh, I remember what Tita B mentioned earlier, that there's this kind of, I don't know, misunderstanding, or I don't know how to say it. Yeah, the
Japanese.
illusions in the young Filipinos that thinks that Japan is all rich, all
Oh,
good, all the great things,
Oh,
and so on and
yeah.
so forth.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
between mentioned about it earlier. So I would like ask Anna, is that kind of how to say it? Is that kind of thinking is still there in is still common in the Philippines, or um
yes. I'm
Mm.
one
yeah.
of those.
Seriously.
I'm one of those, you know. Just
Yes.
kidding.
All they
Yeah.
know is anime,
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah, anime.
The only
Milan, Universal Studios, right?
Yeah. But in my defense, I really like the culture, like how it's been preserved for a very, very long time. So okay,
Mm.
I'm gonna talk about my experience. Yeah. So recently, I've been watching a lot of anime, and I can't help but really appreciate the Japanese culture. So I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of
Mm,
Filipinos think that one as well. That it's kind of
mhm.
ironic because we are colonized by Japan way back then. It's like
Mm.
their sins have been forgiven, like that. But
Mm.
but it's still good. And did you know that according to Duolingo, Japanese is like the number one language that other Filipinos would like to learn besides
To
English?
learn. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh.
Yes. That's
yeah,
true. I heard about that. Yes.
yeah.
That's true.
So it seems like that thinking is ingrained to a lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of Filipino, not only the youth, I think, but also those who grew up in anime maybe and those who are interested in Japan. So it's like it's for all ages, the impression on
And one
Japan.
more thing, geographically, it is so near the Philippines, right? It's so easy to go. Instead of going to like the United States or Europe, you know. When I decided to come to Japan, this was, as I said, 50 years ago.
Uh,
Nobody was interested in Japan then.
oh.
And so when I said I'll be going to Japan, everyone would ask why. What are you going to do there?
Okay.
So since you mentioned that you migrated like a long time ago, like in the 70s, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
So
50 years ago.
yeah, can you
Uh,
tell us like the experience like when you moved to Japan in the 70s compared to how easy it is or like the
Now,
experience to migrating now in Japan?
okay. Well, at that time, of course, there was no social media. Okay. You would have to go through what you have to borrow books. You have to look at encyclopedias to find out what is there in Japan. Except of course for the Sony TVs and Toyota cars. At that time, they were getting very popular. Okay, but the SNS that we have now, there was nothing then. So you could just imagine, I really didn't know much about what was in store for me here. But fortunately, as I said, I don't think I would come here on my own. I was under this Japanese Ministry of Education scholarship program. So everything was taken care of, where I would be living in a dorm. My school was fixed, and I didn't have to worry about anything.
Mm.
Okay. That's one big factor. I wasn't very scared or anything like that because I knew that I didn't know the language. So I
Mm.
said, I will come anyway to learn it. And that
Mm.
was my
Mm.
purpose.
Mm.
But when I came here, the first year was really very hard because we were put up in a school in a dorm where we had to prepare for to take the Japanese university entrance examinations.
Mhm.
So we had to learn all the kanjis that were needed, the basic kanjis,
Right.
about more than 800 of them. Okay.
That's a lot.
And there was no English, just Japanese, that was the school then.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't, I mean, my classmates were from different parts of the world. Some were very good in kanjis, like those from Hong Kong, China, Singapore, but others, like from Mexico, from Brazil, they don't know anything. So it was a difficult, training for us because it was like, we could hardly sleep. There was so much work to do, tests every day, so that in 10 months' time, we would be ready to take the entrance exams. Okay. So we were in a world of our own then. There was only time to go out on weekends. And at the time, not like now, when you go out now, you see Filipinos everywhere. You go to church and there's a big crowd of Filipinos. But
Mm.
at the time, you could only count the number of Filipinos. And I was
Mm.
very lucky to have had connections with the few Filipinos who've been residing here. Very few of them. And those were the only Filipinos around that time. We were very close because we were very few. But now, with so many Filipinos all over, it has changed. The demography has changed so much. And with the SNS, my
Mm-hmm.
God, everything has changed so much.
Just like everyone is connected.
Connected, yes, and everyone knows everything, all the same information. But at the time, you know, we had to fend for ourselves actually, and depend
Mm.
very few uh, titas or titos then from our embassy. Yeah. One advantage that I had was I learned the language very fast because of the training that I was undergoing then. And that is why I keep telling newcomers when I talk to them, please learn the language because it will make your life so much easier.
Mm.
So I saw the importance of learning the language.
Yep, yep.
Um, and it made life so easy for me
Yes.
by knowing the language. Yeah.
Right. So, Tita, since you just told us about your personal experience migrating to Japan 50 years ago, and you compare to uh, what happened today, yeah, it's easier for younger Filipino to migrate to Japan. I would like to ask about your personal experience that has influenced you to
Mm.
advocate for youth migrants in Japan and finally made you decide to found Kakehashi. So, what kind of personal experience that you experienced back then that finally, drove you, so you finally decide, okay, I would like to advocate for youth migrants in Japan so they can live their life easier, and then that you found also Kakehashi.
As I mentioned earlier, I have been working as a court interpreter,
Hmm.
and of course, I have to be present in
Hmm.
court trials or visitations by lawyers and the Filipino accused. Okay,
Hmm.
so I hear many stories, and I would sometimes I go home feeling my heart was so heavy because I said, if only these, young kids had been guided properly, or had they
Hmm.
been given the right education and guidance or orientation, they probably wouldn't have been in this situation. I had one case where I'm not supposed to be talking about these things actually, but just to give an example, this was a Japanese Filipino uh, guy who was brought home to the Philippines. He is a Japanese national, okay? He was born here in Japan, but he was brought home to the Philippines by his parents. His parents separated in the Philippines, so it turned out he had to live in the streets, on the streets, okay, until the Department of Social Welfare got a hold of him, and he had to stay in one of those facilities, okay. But that was his background, okay. He did not have a family, nothing. He would just be wandering around and be living in the facility until I think, I don't know if it was a broker who found out that he has a Japanese national. He was a Japanese national, so he was convinced to come back to Japan and live here and work here. Okay, so he came to Japan. He knew his father was here, but he didn't know where. He knew that he had some siblings, but he didn't know where. There was no contact at all. He was all by himself with a broker, or I don't know who he came in touch with, until he decided to be on his own. He was in Nagoya. He came to Tokyo and lived by himself, found a job. He could not speak Japanese very well, but since he's a Japanese citizen, it was easier for him to find a job. Okay. So he lived, of course, in a cheap old apartment, okay, in a small room, wooden walls. And his neighbor was an old Japanese woman, alone, living alone. And summertime, he would open his windows. He would turn on his music so loud, just like when he's in the Philippines. Okay. And the poor old lady would get so upset and disturbed. She would keep reminding him, don't do that. But he could not understand why she was so mad at him. Because he says in the Philippines, it's nothing, when you listen to loud music. So he couldn't understand why. But it just kept dragging until one day he could no longer take it. Or maybe, I don't know, he may have been mentally unstable already. The lady got mad at him, and so in the evening, he knocked at her door, and they quarreled, and then he stabbed him, okay, and killed him.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, sad.
Because he, out of frustration, he could not understand why the old lady was so mad at him. And so that's the story, and I would hear this, and my heart was so heavy with pain. I said, if only this child could have been given better orientation or guidance, he would not have done this, I'm sure. So that many cases like that. So I said, I in court, I could not give any advice to the child because I have to remain neutral. I cannot show any sympathy to these children. Okay. So I felt so frustrated. I couldn't do anything for them. So I came up with this group, and I said, what can we do for these children? And so that was it. That was the start of the survey that we did, asking children what their problems were, and with a book.
All right. That's a very sad story. And yeah, how do I say this one? Like, I'm glad that you put out this initiative or this program to help the Filipino youth to properly understand understand and bridge the gap from different cultures.
Yes.
So
Yep.
since it's development, Tita B, so what has been like the impact brought by Kakehashi? Like, have you personally experienced like the impact of your programs, or do you have someone you personally know who felt the impact?
Oh yes. Well, we have this. Well, we don't have that many books to distribute, but we try to distribute to as many organizations as possible, and we try to encourage them to download them. Well, we've been getting good feedbacks about that, and some community leaders saying that that book is really very, very helpful for them, when people come to them for help. Okay. So actually, I want to share with you that we just started a new program. Again, SPF, together with another NGO who's dealing with foreign residents in Japan. They chose Kakehashi to be a pilot project to collaborate with them for a new pilot project, because we know that within the next 5 years there will be more migrants coming into Japan. The Japanese immigration would be allowing more migrants to come in, because dependents will be allowed to come in already for special visas. So the Singa, this is the other partner in this project, saw the book, and they said that we already have the resource. They want to do a community-led orientation for newcomers. Okay. So, and they know that the Filipino communities are strong all over the country in Japan. They said, why don't we make Philippines the model? They want to do this for all the other ethnic communities. But they want to start it first with the Philippines because, one, we have this Kakehashi book already. We have a resource. We have actually just started our discussion with the Filipino communities leaders on how to conduct this orientation for newcomers. And the Philippine Embassy is also in cooperation with us, and also the Commission on Filipinos Overseas in the Philippines, which is conducting the departure orientation seminars over there. Before they leave the Philippines, they conduct that seminar. So it will be a seminar that will be conducted here in Japan after they arrive. to orient them about how to navigate their new life here in Japan.
Oh,
So,
that's a very great like milestone, I say, or achievement. It's
yeah,
a very big program, yeah.
well, we hope it will be successful. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it will.
At least we're getting the cooperation of, it's easier for us to get the cooperation of institutions.
I believe that we already talked a lot on the background of development of this initiative, Kakehashi, right? What are the urgency of why Kakehashi make these books? What's been experienced personally by Between? So finally, Between Titabi decided to becoming a founding members of Kakehashi and so on and so forth. That's really important, but I would like also to ask questions that maybe uh, after all this time with that you have spent on this advocacy, yeah, I would like to know what is, let's say, the most interesting story or the most memorable story that you ever experienced. You know, like the fun memories, the happy feeling when you advocating this issue. You have something to share to us?
Uh, well, it's when you meet some people and they thank you for this handbook, when they say how helpful this handbook is, um, it makes you feel, oh, everything, all the hard effort, all the labor, and it was really very hard to be doing this thing, but to be told that, oh, this is really a very good and useful book is, makes us so happy that the hardships, have resulted into something good. Yeah. Well, I hope, as I said, I've been telling my colleagues, I'm 72 years old, and I would like to, to take it slower now, because my husband and I are getting old. So I've been encouraging my colleagues, to take over. So I've started it, so maybe they can do much better than me. Younger ones, can, you wouldn't believe it, but they are so smart and they know, very resourceful, so they can do much better, I think, these young people. Mm. And that's what I'm really looking forward to see all these people who have been helped, to be doing very well. Mm.
So that what actually will make you so much happier, you and also our
Yes.
colleagues in the Kakehashi, that finally you can see that the works is, you know, have that kind of impact, very impactful to the community. So, can you also tell us if we would like to, how to say, if we would like to get the book, where
Mhm.
can we get the book?
Oh, I sent you a file earlier.
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean for the audience.
If you want a physical copy of the book, I can send you some. But it's downloadable.
Yes, where can we download it?
I show you, there's a QR code that you can use.
Right.
Uh, we have a website, Kakehashi website, actually.
Yes.
You can see it there, and it's easily downloadable in any of the 3 languages.
All right. Thank you, Between. We will ask for the website from you, and we will put it in our caption letter in this
Yes.
publication of this podcast.
So everything that you have said, Tita B, has been a very inspiring and very, it touched the heart. It touched my heart. So, so you mentioned that the younger generation is like, it's like they're creative, and like they're like the hope of the future. Like kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan. Or like
Yes.
youth is the hope of the country, right? So for you, so like what are your hopes for the young generation of migrants and their supporters in the Philippines and Japan?
Uh, well, I just hope that they using whatever resources that's so many resources that they could get to use them and then study them so that they have sufficient information to carry with them before migrating. Okay, so that they will not be put in a very difficult situation. It's best for them to prepare themselves um, by using whatever resources they could get a hold of and asking people, and then ready themselves, because they have everything. They could have everything in their hands. In our world right now, there's nothing that you cannot be that you will not be able to find information about. So information is very, very important. They must have the right information, and also the right mindset, be able to get into a right mindset about how it is to migrate to a different country, because migrating to a different country is not that easy. You have to adjust to a different way of life, a different culture, and of course, the host country also. I hope, and this is one more thing that I hope, like, for example, the Japanese society also would in turn also learn more about, the culture, and about, the migrants, the foreign, many migrants that are coming into their country. It will not be a one-way thing. It is also important, I think, that I'm talking for Japan, okay, yeah, that the Japanese society also open up their society and their hearts, for these migrants,
I
because
agree.
it is a fact that their population is so low, and they're lacking in labor force, and they need people to help them, sustain, a very peaceful and a very progressive country. So it has to be a mutual coexistence. The migrant has to learn about the Japanese culture and the society and how to deal with it. And on the other hand, the Japanese society also would have to reach out and try to understand and come up, with just the right balance, for them to coexist peacefully and safely. That's my only um, desire at the moment,
Alright.
about migration to Japan. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So it's not like a one-way street, right? Two-way. So the Japan should also put an effort as well as defending countries as well. So how about you, Jess? Any thoughts?
Mm.
Yeah, not really, but like I believe that this conversation that we had earlier is very, very, very so much fruitful. I kind of shocked actually. I'm still shocked with the story that been told by Between earlier about the
Mm.
still kind of
Yeah.
shocked with I can get the sense why finally Tita B and all of her colleagues in the Japan finally feel the urge to, okay, let's do something about it. And like we have to uh, make things right, something like that, yeah. Because there's a lot of obstacles that being faced by Filipino migrants. It's not only language that becoming a very big barrier, and
Mhm.
also a lot of things that we I personally really appreciate what Kakehashi has been doing in advocating this issue, and I personally would like to express my how to say my I would express my thank, yeah, to Between for giving
Anytime.
us, for giving us this such a fruitful conversation like this.
As I
It's an
said, it's my
honor.
pleasure.
It's
It's
an
my
honor to have you
anything
in
for
this podcast.
BBC. I'll do, yes. I know you're all working so hard. I could see your commitment as well to a better world for migrants.
Wow,
Yes.
it's
Mm.
Uh,
cool.
Thank you very much. And thank you
Okay.
also for Kakehashi.